Their primary concern is going to be the consistency of messaging. And that's going to be your challenge as well, because as you kind of seen, there are diverse audiences throughout this process. Some require different bits of information, and some things are more relevant to some people than others, and yet the same message has to get to everyone. So this could be a real problem. They're also going to be the most focused on the end user. So whatever the company does, they're going to go all the way to the end of the chain to think about that individual and what the service is, what the product is, and what impact it will have on that end user. They're very concerned, they're going to be more concerned about external perceptions of the company than internal perceptions. Understandably, their audience concerns are going to be customers, media, to a certain extent employees, but less so, and then competition. And they're also going to know exactly what the competition's up to and what impact that's going to have or is having on the company he or she works for. They can be prone to hyperbole, and oddly enough, a lot of times your job is going to be containing the message and keeping it from being a little bit overblown and too unrealistic, as it might come from a sales individual. Sometimes protected from highly confidential issues. This is a communicator. They're out, they're talking. So they can certainly be a leak, both internally and externally. It's worthwhile talking a little bit about nonprofit executives. Again, this is a slightly different take. The personality type, they're going to be very passionate, and they're going to be very devoted to whatever the mission is for that particular nonprofit. Change agent, they love change, they love making things better and improving causes or whatever the particular issue might be. Their primary concern, sponsors, efficiency, but it's all about money. They're always going to be stressed about money. So whatever the communications focus is going to be, whether promoting the company or promoting an event, it really is at the underlying purpose, cause is going to be generating money. And that's just incredibly important. Nonprofits succeed and fail on this alone, whether they get the money or not. Their main audience, obviously their primary audience is going to be people, donors, sponsors, competitors and peers are important just because donation dollars are limited. So if I'm the only company out there, or nonprofit, I'm going to get, if you have $100, I'm going to get the whole thing. If there are 10 nonprofits out there competing for your dollar, and there are going to be many more, then I have to worry how much of that $100 I'm going to get. Do I get $1? Do I get 20? Do I get 70? So definitely they're concerned about donors and the peers and what they're doing. The problem they face, though, is irrational expectations. And so they have to manage that. So if you're a donor giving money, sometimes you can look back and say, you know what, you're in an organization that's just not giving good value for money. And so as a PR professional, that's your job to make sure that doesn't happen. Some other people that you might come across in your career and have to deal with: Chief Intelligence Officer, IT in general, compliance, risk, regulators. So these are just some of the other people that you might have to factor in when you're looking at your overall messaging. I'll just kind of, let's see. I think that's kind of the personality types in general that you'll probably have to deal with. Any questions? It's worth also talking about boards and what their role is. And they are kind of a behind-the-scenes group of individuals, and so you, to a large extent, will not have to deal so much with them, but of particular interest is the third bullet point. They're there, and their responsibility is to challenge the CEO's vision and execution, because they're managing the reputation, second to the last bullet point, of the company. And that is how they're judged. If the company is performing well, if they have a good reputation, the board is probably doing its job. They're overseeing the CEO. They want to give the CEO a lot of latitude to execute that vision that he or she has. But at the same time, they want to make sure that it's real. They want to make sure that it's achievable, and that they're delivering the shareholder value, that they're delivering the value to the consumers or whoever their end user might be. And so this is what they're doing. As far as what you're doing and your role, this is you. You're the ambassador of the company. You're the diplomat. So you've somehow got to figure out how all of these different groups, how all of these different personalities come to some sort of consensus about how they communicate who the company is and what its goal is. And with that, I'll just close and ask if you have any questions or anything you want to discuss.
For someone interested in like PR for the medical field, how would you suggest going about getting a job there?
Huge industry and loads of opportunities. The security of going into healthcare is huge because this is a growing industry and it is going to continue to grow. We have an aging population, and so to serve the needs of this, the baby boomers and then all the generations that follow, given that we're living longer, this is a very secure and dynamic industry to work in. Global Communications, I think 60% of their client base is healthcare focused. And being in Nashville, given that we have such a huge healthcare industry, it's a great place to be as well. So a lot of the agencies in Nashville and Franklin, Brentwood are going to say that they have a large healthcare focused client base. You need to do your homework. Look at those agencies that have healthcare PR. You might even have a particular interest in certain areas of PR. You can go back to financial communications because right now you have consolidation with service providers, acute care providers merging to offer more beds across a broader geographic base. You might say, I want to work in promoting nursing homes and the specific needs and issues that they have. But an agency is going to kind of give you a broad base of that. But look at the agency backgrounds in healthcare centers in particular, like Nashville. See where there might be a role for you, reach out to them. Look at the healthcare providers themselves, because every hospital, a large hospital, is going to have a significant PR team. So you can go directly to Vanderbilt, the universities in particular, and see what kind of opportunities are there. Start with internships at these places, and then just kind of figure out what your role might be going forward. But you're right, whatever you might have an interest. You might say, when I was 5, I wanted to be a doctor. Well, I'm not going to be a doctor now, but I can still be in healthcare and really contribute in a big way. Yeah.
I want to know, does Global Communications offer any internships?
We do. We have only summer internships, though, that kind of start, I want to say, kind of mid-May and go through August before you would go back to school. We don't really have specific information on upcoming internships until about February, and I think that's when we kind of put out our notice as to what we have available. But certainly make your list of agencies in the area, and it does not hurt to reach out to them and ask them what their internship policies are, when they plan to put notices online, what the process is, because every agency is going to have its unique process in identifying appropriate interns.
I'm just curious about your strategy with the Vodafone in Germany.
The strategy?
Yeah.
Okay. In what context?
Like, how did you approach it? 'Cause I lived in Germany and in London, so I know that it's.
Yeah. I'll have to say, PR in London was a lot more fun than PR in Germany because Germans by culture are a bit more structured and rigid and conservative. What was the strategy? You know what? Every day I would get up at 4 in the morning with the agency that we had in Germany, and we would go through all the papers throughout Germany, because that was the country that was really going to set the tone for success or failure of the hostile bid. We would review all of the German papers, and we had a conference call. As I recall, it was 7 o'clock our time in Germany, 6 o'clock London time. And we would go through the coverage in Germany, positive, negative, and of course all of it was negative. And then we developed strategies, and sometimes we would respond to certain things. If there was information that was just completely inaccurate and damaging, we would go out and correct it and try to reach out specifically to that journalist and try to get them to, they were never going to correct anything, but get them to perhaps rethink messages and how they wrote their stories going forward. What else? It was really just a lot of direct contact with journalists. This is another thing that was really interesting, because as PR professionals, we think we can influence everyone. And it's like they don't understand the story. We sit them down and we tell them everything they need to know. They'll get it, and we can convert them. And the Financial Times, of course, is driven out of London, but Germany had its own FT, and they were covering business matters within Germany. That obviously the reporter covering Vodafone and Montesmond, the acquisition of the hostile bid, was more fair, but there was a lot of negativity because that's what the story was. Germany hates this, they want us out, they don't want this to happen, but they were more fair. The reporter in the FT Deutschland was just, he could not say anything nice about Vodafone. We worked with the journalist in London, and he was able to publish stories that were more accurate and more fair. I actually flew the investment banker, the lead investment banker from Goldman Sachs, over to sit down personally with this journalist in Germany and take them through all of the messaging so that he would understand. It didn't matter. And that's when we realized he had an agenda. I mean, his role was to cover this story from Montesmond's perspective. And that's how the FT actually got its balance. You had the German messaging being represented by that paper, and then in London you had basically Vodafone's story being represented. But the strategy really was just a lot of direct outreach and connection with the general public, and that's why it was so important for me when I got there to just be identified as a spokesperson for.
Well, with your financial background, like you have HSBC London and Deutsche Bank, who are huge competitors in the market. I mean, they're always fighting for first position.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that helped a lot. I mean, I know Goldman Sachs is involved.
Right. Yeah, I mean, well, everyone has a perspective, and you have to kind of understand where everyone's coming from. Yeah.
I've got an internship next spring with the Chamber of Commerce in Lawrence County, and so I'm going to have some issues with like making the local small businesses excited about PR communications. So that's kind of what they're wanting me to do, is kind of get them excited because it's small. How would you go about telling them that communications and PR is really essential even for small businesses?
Yeah, that's a real challenge because it's a concept that they don't understand. And I know that because I've actually come from a small town. And I have worked with them a lot on, kind of nonprofit issues and economic development issues. And it's not something that they place a huge value